lot of times that'll unlock more information. So I'm just going to kind of go through it. So anyway, I mean, I think one of the things that's really cool about this thing is we decided to bring cool people together like this in an awesome way, and the idea of it being such a universal wave riding craft that anyone can kind of ride and enjoy is it involves the ocean and the water in particular. So something interesting about the water that you guys may or may not know is just that the shape of the water molecules are kind of unique in that they're not symmetrical. They're about 104 degrees off the center, so they get sticky because there's different polarity on different sides. The fact that it's sticky, it's the same reason why you dip your hand in the water and there's still water stuck on your finger. It's kind of the basis of how all this works. So water sticking to your board in different ways and different degrees create different drags and water flow. You can, by changing your weight distribution on the board, you can kind of control the attitude of the board to the water flow, and by doing that, you can control the board itself and where you are on the wave. So the general idea is, basically the fastest, that you can go is basically flat on the board. So the board's basically flat to the wave. Water goes from point A to point B. It's the least amount of distance. Okay, if you want to get control and speed, so these are the two main things that riders typically are interested in, right? Is getting your speed and getting control. So it's basically, this board goes back like this, so weight gets pushed back here, the board gets at an angle, and it starts creating turbulence in the tail, turbulence in the rails, and that will slow you down, and you'll have more control like that. If you want to go fast, you slide up. And so it's just basic back and forth movement. Now if you go too far forward, the nose starts to go down, right? And you'll either purl or the tail will get loose. And you can use that to your advantage in more advanced moves like spins. A lot of you guys probably already know about that. But in just the simplest terms, it's forward for speed, backwards for control. And that basically applies if you're just going straight. So if you're just going straight towards the shore, it's like this, right? But as soon as you start wanting to turn on a face, it's a similar idea, but instead of going just straight forward, you're going back to the tail. So now the board is going like this. So see if I'm going left at cloud break, I'm sliding ever so slightly. I go back a little bit and it just kind of angles the board up and back. So it's like this. It's a subtle movement. And again, if you go too far forward, it's going to loosen up the tail, get on the nose and curl. So it's a fine balance there. You got to kind of fine tune that. Now the way to accomplish that, the easiest way to accomplish that is if you're just going straight in, you got your hands like this. Mostly you'll see people basically grab the boards and just go forward for speed, backward for control. If you're turning, it's almost like you kind of assume like a body surfing position where you lead with one arm. So you lead with your left arm if you go left, which is basically up here. This is an interesting thing, right? Because your hand can go anywhere up in here. But what I find the most beneficial for leverage is splitting it. So you either do the Spock on here, you drop pinky on here, but it's ideal to have a couple digits on both sides of the nose and the rail. I've seen a lot of guys out there like this, and it's okay, you can kind of get by like this, but if you just drop another digit over here, you have a lot more control of this thing in this direction. Right? If it's like this, it's basically only your grip is pulling that. With your fingers here, it locks it in. So this is a good thing to start with, is just this palm grip, whether it's like this, whatever's comfortable for you. But the general idea is to keep a digit on both sides of this nose and the rail here. So that's one step here. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want your elbow to come off of the deck. So does everyone know what this part of the board is? This is called chine. You got the rail, what's this right here? Chine. Chine. C-H-I-N-E to pull turn. That's this whole portion of the board here. And you don't want your elbow to slide too far over that, because a lot of times the water flow will come up here and it'll catch your elbow. And it's all about minimizing drag and maximizing your leverage in a way that doesn't create drag. So if your elbow starts going on the side here, you're going to start dragging. So you're leading with your left arm, you're envisioning going left at 12, right? So you've got a left arm like this. This elbow's kind of snug here, not too far over, not too far in. Your balance there. And then your other arm, instead of being up here like this, which is straight, you just stagger it back here like this. So you got this and this, you stagger. And if you watch what happens when I push away to go back, I kind of naturally go into that corner. So the natural movement is to go from that movement that you want to go from here to the corner again. If you're going to go right, it's just the opposite. Staggering, it's kind of like that. That's exaggerated, the movements are of course a lot more subtle, but that's the idea. You're going from here to the corners if you're turning. Now, the next thing you want to do is your hips. You want to make sure your hips are also accentuate this motion. So if your hips are too far in the middle of the board, you're not going to be able to get it at an angle. So it's just going to be like, you have your leverage with your arm, but then you're going to be fighting with your hip because it's going to want to push this way. Your elbow's going to want to push this way. What you want to do is you want to slide your hips all the way to the side, close to this area as well. So your weight's kind of like right on that inside rail. One thing I do a lot of is I use my legs. So you can, your fins become an extension of the playing surface, and they create a huge degree of control through drag. So by spreading, not only spreading your legs like this, you can spread your legs like this. This will slow you down. So a lot of times that pipe or steep drops like here, if you want to scoop in from the top, you're spreading your legs like this, and not just your legs, but the things you can't see are your fins. So your fins, you actually can point instead of pointing like this, which is fast, right? It's the least amount of drag. If you go like that, it'll be like a lot of drag. So you can even pull your feet up like that and spread your legs right at the top, push out to get move your body in for control, and you'll be in a really good spot right where most of the energy is, that top third of the wave. What's neat about that is that once you're up in that zone and you're hooked up in there, all the energy is right there. All you have to do is relax your legs, and they automatically will fold in and point. Because a lot of flow wants to naturally make you do that. So if you guys start like this, and then you just relax, it'll automatically go like that, and it'll just take off. So a lot of times, if you're in the lead bowl or behind the beat, you can scoop in like that, and then just shoot out. And that's how like your pipe and stuff, like that's really good. You're not like, otherwise, a lot of times you're running around, you're trying to find where the power is. But if you stay where that power zone is, especially ready to take off, you'll have all that potential energy ready to release. So I don't know. Next step after this is maneuvers. But any questions up until this point? Any thoughts?
I was going to ask, when you're bottom turning at cloud rate, I feel like I'm kind of drawing out some of my bottom turns and then releasing, rather than just because the weight, not all of them are bowling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's a good point. So, the idea is you're always keeping your eye on the wave and the shape of the wave and the curvature of the wave. So if it's curved up here like this, way down here, chances are it's going to break right there, right? So, but if it's flat up there, it's curvy up here, then you got time. So that just determines how much time you got to go. And yeah, if you have to get down there, you don't need to stall here. You want to just go for the speed run. So it's a drawn out bottom turn, and it's a high line typically. The higher you are on that face, the faster you'll go. So yeah, if you want to make it through the sections, and you'll see me too, like I'm blazing. Unless it's like a really tight little thick bowl, where you extend out for the control and then spread your legs for the stall. Yeah, that's really good. A tight bowl, but it's drawn out, you just got to run for it. So yeah,
so like I'll do that sometimes, like spread my legs to try and set up for a barrel.
Yeah.
But like I lose too much speed, and then by the time I close my legs, I
take off in that sweet spot with their speed. So I think in that case, yeah, you might be holding it too long. So and I try to keep things smooth, like fluid. So you don't want it to necessarily just go and then let go.
Yeah.
Just keep it smooth, and then that way you can kind of flow through it better. Yeah.
My question. So for us, when
start bumping down the line, you get speed, whether as a kneeboarder or a stand-up surfer. One of the things that I've had to do the whole time since I started riding prone was trying to get that same momentum to get speed. And I know that you move forward, you get speed, you move backward, you slow down. Is there a way that you guys actually are able to pump in the barrel, use the rail, and generate speed down the line in order to make it into another section, or to make it through that deep section? I haven't been able to figure that out.
Yeah, not like a surfboard. The surfboard's got skates. It's pretty, you can really, you gotta, stand up surfing. You got, like 4 or 5 feet of vertical weight distribution that you can deal with. Like you can get, if I jump up right now, I'm going to be weighted for a few seconds, or a second before I hit. Bodyboarding, you don't have that same latitude. So you really just got to be subtle and really get it into that sweet spot on the board. And I would just say that your turns are probably more subtle because you can't apply the same amount of leverage. You don't have the same amount of weight distribution vertically. So it's more of a subtle thing, but you can certainly weight and unweight and pump. So it's
More
just
like a
more
loose
subtle.
kind of snake kind of vibes. Are you using the outside arm to generate that motion?
No, I don't think outside arm is basically just counterbalance and weight. Really, it's not really for like pushing down. It's mainly just counterbalance. Like it's mainly everything happens on the inside.
Okay.
Would you say you utilize the flex actually?
Yeah, for sure. Utilizing like you want to pour with a good amount of a good flexness, so that when you bend, it's like once you snap back, you get this projection squirts where you can go. So it's just bending like this. But yeah, I'd say it's kind of like that certain kind of thought where it's kind of like that. It's not super dramatic. It's just subtle and it's just yeah.
So there's any number of shapes to boards, and nowadays the bottoms seem to have all kinds of various contours and concaves. Can you address, and they don't come with instructions usually.
Yeah.
So can you address what the benefits would be of concaving the bottom of a board or channeling out the bottom of a board?
Yeah, I mean with water flow, like water has a tendency, like on edges and corners, water will converge. And so as it converges, that's like a point where it gets a little sticky on your, like that's a sticky point. So by using like probably the fastest board is just straight across. The water is just shearing off equally from here to here. This is a little bit different. What this has a tendency to do is it kind of has a tendency to direct water towards the edges, or the corners I should say. And so what it ends up happening on the crescent tail is you get a little bit of this, like it'll hit this, and instead of just going straight off, it feels this guy over here and this guy over here, and so it kind of pulls it to the edge.
Providing bite or something, or?
Actually, when it's so the more water's directed into a particular area, the more hold that'll have, or the more directed flow you'll get. And that's why the bat tail, like when I came up with the bat tail, it's basically Tom Mori was working on this rounded tail, we call it the bolo tail, which worked really good. It was super loose, but it just did not have any bite or hold in hard turns, like hard reverses. So I added the wings to it, and then that made the difference. So you kind of had a little bit of the benefit of the extra surface area, which has a kind of the opposite effect, where it's like it's kind of distributing it out, and it makes it an easier, more loose tail.
And when that bat extends beyond the length of the pegs, is that a benefit or?
Well, it's just a different feel. Like with bat tails, and the same thing. Like you probably noticed a lot of my boards have this kind of more pointy.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to direct flow to that point at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just like good hold through turns. It's really good for rail like turns. But it's kind of all to do with hold and how it holds, how it resists through the water.
How are you testing the boards other than in the water?
Water's the best way. I mean, I've looked at doing, actually I was on a forum with Kelly Slater like 20 years ago, 15 years ago. He set it up with Rob Machado, and he was trying to duplicate a magic board. He was trying to scale it up, right? How do you scale up this board that works perfect at 6 foot? I want it to work perfect at 12 foot sunset. And the way I figured out a way to do it is through this CFD software, like computational fluid dynamic software, where it kind of like it takes it simulates But I went on a couple forums and it's so complex, you know, the water flow, it's almost impossible to tell for sure. So, you know, trial and error is really the best way. And there's certain, you can kind of do some preliminary stuff with the CFP software, but I've been exploring that a lot, but still nothing like, you know. And the other thing to think about that's neat about these boards is they're a system. It's not just a shape, it's actually a system of flex and memory, how it recoils, and then that combined with the shape. So and so the right flex with the right template works a certain way. Like if I took this flex and I applied it to a different template, it would work different. So it's kind of that. You need to make sure the flex works in conjunction with the shape. Kind of probably ask for leads to more questions than answers, but yeah.
I just have two things to ask.
Yeah.
Any advice on duck diving?
Yeah.
And also just general wave selection. That's kind of a big one.
Yeah,
So I
okay,
guess the
perfect.
geared toward
Okay, let's address duck diving first. So, like I don't know if you guys have seen on my Instagram, there's like a low pressure. Like that's one of the most useful things you guys can implement. You know, by watching a wave break and really again paying attention to the curvature of it, the thickness of the lip, and like you can tell if it's sucking down here, it's a lot thicker than if it's just like this, or if it's curved like that versus this. So all these different things equate to different bottom contours and also energy in the wave, right? So it's a big energy and it's super shallow, then it's going to be very hollow. Okay, so when you see this coming at you like that, you rock it carefully where it's hitting in front of you, and you just really need to pay attention to that impact zone. Don't just like close your eyes and duck, but pay attention to that as long as you can and see where that's coming in, because what you can do is you can time those low pressures and you can get space between you and the gnarly spots. Like there's certain zones where you don't want to be. Obviously you don't want to be right where that lip impales, because that right there is probably the worst energy impact, that initial plunge, but right in front of that is fine. So, you know, I've had, just recently I've had waves that are like hectic, you know, solid top to bottom, right in front of me, and you can basically sit on your board and just float you up. Like it'll just bounce right over you. So you can really utilize that by watching it. And even waves that aren't that hollow but still are somewhat hollow, like cloud break, so they'll still bounce. So what you want to do is you want to time it in between those bounces. So as it's hitting, you don't want to be right there, you want to be right where it's coming up, right? And then the other thing that's really important when you duck dive is, it's just a little bit of logic, but you want to get the nose typically, if you're going through whitewater, say it's not just if it's a super heavy plunge, you can just charge it like this and it'll actually pop you up. But you got to time it just right, but if you don't, you're going to get a lift. But if it's just whitewater coming in, so the general idea is you get the nose down first, right? And then once the nose is under the water, let's say this is the surface right here, you get the nose down first, then you can push the tail down. And you don't want to just keep it like this. You want to angle it slightly up like this, just slightly. And the idea here is that if the whitewater comes, you know, the whitewater is looking at your board as like an object, you know, if it's like this, it's a huge surface area, it's just going to catch it and blow you in. If it's like this, it'll just blow you back like that. But if it's just slightly up, you're just going to penetrate it, right? So just imagine, you know, you're being the whitewater, you want to keep the board pointed towards it, you know? Okay. And so if you can get it under like that and slightly up, basically what will happen is it will hit the board and it'll kind of like this, versus, you know, that or that. So, and the way to do that is I usually just, you know, slide up on the board, move hands on the board, push down, and then if you go down the other leg, you push with your knee to get the tail up. Okay. Yeah. And, you know, you don't want to get too far, but you should practice this. You know, it's a good technique to learn. Like if you just, even on flat days, just see how far down you can go, and just practice that technique. You know.
How far down do you think you go?
It depends on the board. You know, if it's a small board, I can go pretty deep. If it's not that small, then I can't go that deep. Yeah. But again, it really comes down more so, you know, watching the whitewater come in, and then also so timing all that, and then also keeping that board the angle just so that it's not going to be like a parachute. Yeah. Now, there was a second part of that question.
Wave selection.
Wave selection. So wave selection is, that's a tough one because it's time. But I would encourage you when you're in the lineup just to really pay attention to everything as much as you can. Like be cognizant of all the energy out there, what it's doing, where it's going, how it's breaking. Even wave that you, like I'll watch waves that pass by and you see how they break. Like, oh, how does that one break? And I'll watch. And then depending if it runs, sections, okay, well, that's not what I thought it would do. Or yeah, I guess that's kind of, so it reaffirms your ideas or it'll disrupt your release. In which case, it's still good information, you know. So just try to be mindful of everything. You can, crowd is another thing. See where people are sitting, and then also just time your sets. Like sometimes, a lot of times, you'll go to a beach and you won't really spend much time there. And from my experience, like sets are they can be 8 minutes, 5 minutes to 8 minutes. So you want to watch it for at least that much time.
Oh, this thing on the duck diving thing, you gotta have forward, across.
Yes.
Duck dive. You can't duck dive.
No, that's right. I should have. Thanks for that. Yeah, you want to get some speed forward, paddling consistent. You don't want to overexert yourself. You don't want to go at like 100% your anaerobic threshold. You want to be cruising about 70 to 80. And you should. That's where you should be operating at, because you might need that extra bit, and you don't want to tap out. Like especially in big surf, like that's another thing. Like in big surf, you really gotta manage your energy, how you're using your energy. You want to stay at that 70 to 80% paddling and everything.
One more question, duck diving. Like how big before you bail your board just to enter before you duck dive?
It just depends on the situation. Probably pretty big nowadays. I've ditched my board one session this year. First session, and it was about 25 feet.
But otherwise, you'll duck dive most of the
Yeah, you can duck dive a lot, unless it's super heavy. Yeah, let the leash take the work, man. Sometimes I hope my leash breaks, It's super.
But no, I mean, sorry, not bailing your board, like just like not you have a.
Oh, to dive down instead of
yeah,
duck diving.
exactly. Instead of trying to duck dive.
Yeah, it's 10 feet, 12 feet. Yeah, I think it's beneficial to duck dive up until that size at least. If it's going to be a situation where you're like seriously in danger, bail the board. It's not worth it. Just bail it. And then hope you can body surf.
Yeah, so you're looking at an audience of folks here who probably, on average, got 25, 30 years experience bodyboarding. We're in the second half, I would say, of our bodyboarding lives.
Yeah.
At this point in our, cumulative careers and such, and the sport that we love, what would be the easiest thing to do to take us back to where we used to do launch airs and is it equipment? Is it diet? Is it
it's
travel?
Number one, it's a decision. You gotta be, there's a huge difference between like desiring something and doing something. So you gotta make a decision that you're gonna do it, and that it's important enough to do it, but you can do it, for sure. Like everyone here can do it. Everyone here can get in the best shape of their life. Better than I'm proof of that. Like I'm more flexible now than I was 18.
So it is physical conditioning at this point.
Yes, it's lifestyle. So you gotta commit to it. As you get older, like 30, 40, already. Like when I hit 40, I'm like, wow, I'm not healing like I used to heal. I'm not like, but I kind of cruised past 50 pretty good. I started at 40, where I saw, hey, you got to make a decision. You're either gonna keep working in your, until, or like you got to change your whole routine. Like I want to keep going, So, but I decided, made a conscious decision, and that's what I'm doing. So it's a lifestyle change, which means being conscious of everything you eat, being conscious of your lifestyle, your rest, your water intake, and it's Pandora's box. Like once you start getting into diet, once you start getting into these kinds of things, it's very complicated, and but also very fruitful. Like it's pretty awesome. Like I've learned so much in the process of going there, and I recommend it. can be a strongman forever.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why you can't surf at a high level up here,
Yeah.
you know, whenever you want, you know, as long as you apply yourself correctly. Your healing injury is such that you're not going to heal the same rate, but you certainly can be in a better physical shape to cope with traumatic events. So yeah, so I'll just say conscious decision, number one. Number two, probably a diet, critical. So like, you know, ditch wheats, ditch high index sugar foods, ditch refined sugars, you know, are very minimal. You don't want to get too stressed out about this stuff, because you can get like, some guys who get pushed over the edge, and I'll tell them about it, they start getting into it, and they just get like Jake Stone, for big example. Like that's someone who just went off the, like, he just took it out there, you know, which was cool, you know, he went for it, but you know, you gotta, life is about balance, right? So you can't be too gnarly, but you can definitely extend your riding and your ability by good diet, by good exercise and stretching. I have a stretch routine that I usually do in the morning, it's about 40 minutes, and I just go from head to toe. It's like every day. It's just wake up, you know, have a cup of purified water, and I don't do caffeine or anything like that. I try to avoid anything that's going to tax my adrenaline glands, because I got enough adrenaline to surf. So yeah, I'll just get up and I'll just start stretching. I even do my emails when I'm stretching. You know, there's certain routines, and I'll have my hands free because I got a lot of work to do. So I know that time is a huge thing here, and that's really the resource that we're all like, you know, we got to battle with, right? It's not like money; it doesn't come and go. It's like it goes. So on one hand, take advantage of the limited time that we have here and really live. You know, why not? Right? So. But it is limited, and yeah, too short to not do it 100%. All out.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Do you do like strengthening? You spoke a lot about flexibility.
Yeah. So strengthening, you know, I would suggest, like I've trained with Paul Jack. That was the guy that really taught me everything. Like I've got programs and so on and so forth. There's probably new techniques that are even more advanced than that, but if not, find a Czech practitioner. I can guarantee you'll be transformative for you. So a good Czech practitioner, like they're all over. There's different levels, and so level 5 I think is like the highest kind, and then 4 or 3, and then there's different aspects of that. But they're really familiar with functionality of your core and strength training in a productive way. It's not just like functional strength training. Czech practitioner, CHEK, I recommend that. Any other?
Can I look back to some of the board design stuff? Because I noticed your board might be the same board or shape that I noticed your channels are a little different. You're using kind of more of a
yeah, this is a slight variation to that same one. And, you know, what I did is I do a lot of my stuff in the cat. So what I did is, instead of making it so dramatic, I just basically created a bigger fillet at the beginning of it. So it still has a similar effect, but the entry is a lot more subtle. So it's a little bit smoother entry. But it's, I don't know, still, I don't think it has the same amount of, like it's not as dramatic that you can't feel it as much as the one that the first generation channel. So this is a little bit more forgiving, but it's not as, doesn't seem as quite as quick.
What are your thoughts on rail channels?
I think they're a little slow. Yeah. So I think, yeah, I mean, I've tried different rail channels, and I find them to be pretty slow. Because in the path means you get an additional little vorticity in there and turbulence, and it seems to get a little sticky. Even with additional channels and concaves, it's like, you know, I prefer, like, I want to be able to go fast. I want to go fast. So, you know, I like to keep things pretty simple and functional.
Speaking of going fast, back when we were young, we spent a lot of time playing lightly wet sanding the bottom of our board, because given the texture, it makes it looser, because the water doesn't have, the water gets into
the boundary layer.
Is actually looser and faster. I've never seen that in production boards. That's something you
no, it's actually, there was, I think Challenger did that a little bit. I mean, it was kind of a lame attempt at it, but 3M made some tape, a groove tape, that theoretically you can do that. And conceptually, it's a good idea. What he's talking about is like the same that idea I was talking to you about, how water molecules are sticky. They stick to the surface, so the idea is if you can channel them like a shark scale, you can channel them linearly, that the drag will be reduced, and because it's going linearly now, it's not like all sticky and faster. And I think that would work if you're just going straight. But once you start turning and stuff, it changes a little bit. And it might still be beneficial. No one's really figured out how to do it. You could lightly sand. If you sand in vertical direction, I wouldn't sand this way. If you're going to do it, you're going to sand vertically along the linear path of the water flow. But yeah, that's I think subs do different things. They like heat the hulls, and subs use a bunch of different technologies to kind of make their hulls go faster. One of them is they heat the hulls super hot. The other is they inject bubbles in the front. So it's different ideas. So there's definitely some potential there to develop stuff, but I think it's pretty solid.
Talk about kicking out of waves and/or where you want to be if the wave is closing out.
Yeah. So okay, different techniques for kicking out. A technique I like to use is getting some speed and then cutting out of the wave. And so how I do that is I get a lot of speed up, and I just basically start loading up more and more weight up to this front. And it happens pretty quick, but it's a gradual process. You don't just like this. You kind of slowly bury yourself into it, and then hard turns, and then you try to go down like this if you can. You don't want to go straight down, but you want to go in like this, so that when the wave passes you, it kind of pulls you like that. If you're too far down, you can hit the bottom, or you're going to be like this, and you're going to just kind of pop up like that. You kind of want to penetrate and go down like that. Yeah. And then it just takes practice. Basically, you're almost like, you hold the board and you're almost like you'd be riding like this, and then when you're ready to duck out, you'd be like that. And then you're cutting it hard, right? So burying it like that. Yeah, that just takes practice, just like any other technique. But then I guess other thing to do is, I mean, if you want to just bail your board, you'll get washed a little ways. But out here you got to be careful. You can't just make sure if you're bailing, just bail flat. Try to stay flat as you can. Stay flat as you can all the time. You don't want to do this. And avoid that.
So I have one of your oldest boards from like the late 90s.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know all about the differences in how you can't get that kind of polypro anymore. What would it take to get boards with those characteristics again? Because it doesn't feel, that board has always been special to me. Polypro just feels a little bit different than modern polypro.
Is it polypro or is it polyethylene?
It's polypro.
Yeah, what he's referring to is when they made the phones back in like the 80s and 90s, they had a different blowing agent, like pentane 7.
I think it's extruded polypro.
That'd be extruded polyethylene. Yeah. You mean energy? Like what year are you talking about?
Like late 90s. The E2.
Yeah. That was rare stuff. That was hard to get.
So we can't get that kind of stuff anymore.
We probably could. The problem is that bodyboard market is small compared to like packaging and all these other industries. So we get the scraps. No one's really designing materials for bodyboard in particular. Well, with the exception of the competing foams now, that's probably close to it. But yeah, it's hard to get the same properties as those original blowing agents, but I think some of the modern polypropylene materials rival that in a lot of ways. So I mean, it's pretty good now, I think. Yeah. But I know what you're saying, that linear feel of that polypropylene, polypropylene.
The combination of flex and
lightweight. That was really lightweight. Yeah. Not hard to get. Yeah. Anything else? Any moves? Yeah.
Have you ever looked at putting stringers where your elbows go? Like elbow pieces, always the same thing. You just kind of ruin the boards.
Yeah, I hate stringers, to be honest with you. But it just seems like they're good for mitigating creases and overflexing. But yeah, no, to answer your question, I've tried all kinds of things. In fact, I made a board with polypropylene, the first polypropylene board I think that was ever made, and I made it with two batons that went like this. But I was kind of taking that into account. But not just stringers here. There's some boards that have, you know, like a center stringer and the two small ones on the side. Or those can be up here. So you want it to flex a little bit, you know, you want it to flex and come back. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's still a long ways to go in terms of like how far it could potentially go. And as soon as we can find an alternative to plastic, I'll be good. So actually on that note, I was thinking cork could be a good alternative to cork on wood. So I've been actually exploring that a little bit.
So I've read, we've talked about you got your three basic shapes you like for different situations. Do you change board length for different wave intensity exercises? Do you like a short boarder to have various things?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It seems like bodyboarders.
Yeah, but mine is so subtle. Like I'll go between a 43 3/4 to like a 42 1/4. It's basically like a half an inch or an inch, you know, like just ever so slightly. And that's like this much, which isn't a lot.
So it's kind of splitting hairs.
Yeah. And there's other things that have a probably more impactful thing, the shape of it, the thickness of it, the flex. Like those things I think are really important. You want to get a decent size range and to make sure that other stuff is dialed. But, yeah, bigger board, more surface area, good for smaller waves and lower power situations. And then you can go smaller, narrower, thinner if it's more meaty. It's got a lot of energy and you're basically redirecting energy and redirecting it into speed versus trying to generate speed. Small, like little fluffy waves. Jay, you probably remember like some of the boards we made for the wave pools and stuff. Like I had these huge like rafts, you know.
Well, the cool thing about the wave pool thing is we went to Texas and what was that, in '89 probably, when they opened the first flow rider, and we were all riding regular ocean boards and wearing fins, and then Mike comes out with a knife after we rode it for a couple days and he carves the tail of his board into that rounded shape, and it worked insane. He was killing it and we all went, oh, okay, that's a game changer. And he took his fins off, so we all followed suit and we cut our boards into rounded tails. And now, even to this day in 2019, 30 years later, all the parks that have flow riders, they have rounded tail boards, and all the guys that really rip on those flow riders ride the rounded tail boards. Mike really was the impetus behind that, as far as I know.
Norway, huh?
Yeah, Norway too. We went to another one in Norway, and yeah, it was Mike was the innovator in the flow boards. So obviously knows a lot about board design. What about the your rails, as far as the rail chine angle and the rail itself?
Yeah.
And do you variations?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good technical question. So you know, based on the thickness of the board, like the most important thing is the size of the rail and the angle. Like that's more important than the chine. Chine's secondary. Because you know, if your thickness is, let's just say, you know, whatever, 52 or 50 as an example, and you change your rail size, it's going to affect your chine, right? The bigger your rail gets, then the chine gets reduced because the thickness of the board is right. So based on your angle and your rail angle and the size. The smaller rails typically have less drag, a little bit quicker. You lose a little bit of pull versus a little bit bigger board. Same with angle. Sharper it is, a little faster it is, less pull. Too flat, and you know, so it's a fine balance. I usually work between 50 and 59 degrees for the rail angle, and I like 2 inches about, and it can vary a little bit depending on the thickness of the board. The thickness of the board is really, I mean, I get into this kind of technical stuff, but you know, foam in general is you lose a lot of strength and you reduce the thickness. So by going just 2 mils down, you're going to lose a lot of strength in that. So changes in flex characteristics. Then you got to look at the surlink thicknesses and the lamination and how much you lose in lamination, all that stuff. That's kind of complicated.
So, I mean, I noticed surfboard designs and knee boards and things like that, you know, older ones, they'll have that thinning or you know, spooned out or flexibility. And, you know, seeing how Renow and some of these guys would use that flex, but as far as the control, you know, that tapered rail, would you think, you know, if that happens?
Yeah, I mean, I would just get on it and start experimenting with it. You know, on one hand, you want to have some bite in the tail. You might lose that if you taper this too much. So, you know, this angle here is kind of important for how the water's. So, you know, water wraps onto this. That's where I was kind of starting to begin with. Was basically when water it tries to adhere to this rail here as it's coming down, racing down here, right? So this transition here, this radius is super important, and you know how it transitions from this to this is really important. You know, that's how you get that whole edge there. So this size, you know, when you start going concave, it vacuums there a little bit, and so that might get a little sticky. You know, I actually got a pad once when I was kind of younger, and it was basically a step along the tail here, a vertical step where the water would shear here in the tail. So in that case, it was really fast, but it's hard to turn. They go really quick. Cool. Any maneuvers or anything else you guys want to talk about? Or?
How was the surf range?
Oh yeah, surf ranch. Cool. Yeah, it was fun. It was super fun. They do a great job in terms of like the experience. The wave is really different. Like you know, all the years that I've programmed my mind to work when I see a wave, you just have to throw out the window because you can't watch the wave and read it very well. You know, you just have to know at a certain amount of time it's going to start barreling. So you got to kind of race out to that point. And what's odd about it is that it's basically an underwater ram that's going faster than a wave would normally break. So a wave that big might break at a certain speed that you'd be familiar with, you know, and you kind of expect it, you know, it's a little hollow wave. But, you know, depending on the period and the amount of energy in it, but basically it runs pretty similar in speed. But there, it actually runs a little faster than what the wave should do it. So you have to adjust your thinking. You can't really apply your ideas. You can to a large degree, but there's a lot to it that you can't. Like you can't read the wave and expect it to do what you're thinking it's going to do. Like you might, oh, it's still, no, it's not going to barrel, and all of a sudden it's just, so you gotta, you know, and they have like an instructional video, and I wish I watched it. Because the first half of the day I just spent trying to figure out, like, damn, come on, I'm not making it out of these barrels. The first thing is, okay, the first thing you don't want to do is stay in the barrel for too long in the first section. It's like, I was looking at the whole time. So
they told you what the wave was going to do?
Yeah. In the instructional video, there's like, nobody, you know, nobody told me. They figured, oh, he's got it figured out.
Because I watched the first video you posted of you going right, and then like, I mean, you're just going, and all of a sudden, you know, you knew when the wave was going to barrel. All of a sudden, you just shot forward. Like
yeah, you had to run out, and even then, I felt awkward because I felt like I didn't know if I was in the right spot the whole time until I started to roll. But it was a lot of fun, super fun. And yeah, it's interesting, you know, the artificial waves, they definitely are an interesting facet and an aspect of surfing. But I mean, you guys are, right now, this is it. Like, this is where you want to be. You want to be in an environment like this, where there's, you know, there's sharks, and there's dolphins, and there's fish, and there's coral, and there's this life. And surfing with friends, and, you know, being in real waves, it's like a million times more fulfilling, I feel. But it was fun, yeah. It was super fun. They did a great, you know, everything you can think about in terms of like what you'd want to see there, they did. Like good food, you know, they got like, you show up and there's like smoothies and like epic little breakfast, and then they got towels and stuff. It's like a resort. It's just super cool. Really fun. It was really nice.
Mike, I have a question about, one time I read an article about how to make bottles, and you wrote how different battles and how to position yourself to get out of them. Can you tell us something about that, about how to make battles
Yeah,
in a
sure.
more efficient way?
Yep. So I mean, using those techniques I've kind of explained, you know, as far as like getting into the tube and basing yourself and scooping in and going and staying high, and then keeping your speed. The main thing you want to do when you're in a barrel is keeping an eye on the wave face, keeping an eye on the curvature, keeping an eye on the lip. You know, just seeing how it's folding. You know, how much speed do you have? And really just paying a lot of attention to the wave face. And then the other thing you got to also think about is just maintain. Like, you know, don't freak out. Don't, you know, you're safest in the barrel. Don't freak out. Just keep that line and drive. So many barrels like you make, you don't think you can make. You just go for it. You know, just stay there as long as you can and keep driving. Of course, you know, if it's already, you know, breaking 20 feet in front of you and you don't have a lot of speed, you're not going to make it. But in a lot of cases where it will fold over in front of you, you're going, I don't know if I might be too deep. If you have that mindset, you're too deep, and you start like, okay, well, I'm not going to make it, then automatically you're not going to make it. But if you just try to give it a dig, a lot of times you can make it. So I guess my advice is to really keep an eye on the lip line and the curvature of the wave face. So that makes sense.
Okay, so guys, just wanted to thank Mike Stewart for doing this little tutorial. Mike is somewhat qualified to speak on the things that he spoke of. And those of you that don't know what we're talking about, he is 9-time world champion. We're stoked to have him here. And you know, if you're in the surf and you have a question for him, Mike he's told me he's very open to giving you pointers right in the water, so don't be afraid. On those notes, by the way, you may have noticed, well, you wouldn't because you haven't looked, it is glassed off. We may get a good evening session here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Just 2 housekeeping notes before we